Good morning, it's Rachel here from Renutrition, and it is Mental Health Awareness Week. Now, I've been thinking long and hard about what I wanted to say and how I wanted to make a contribution. So I've decided to talk a little bit about my own journey, and I've got something exciting to share with you about my plan to help as well. So, mental health for me is a story about burnout. So, burnout is a pervasive mental health problem in the workforce, characterised by fatigue, nervous tension, stress, low mood, and a general loss of interest and motivation. So, some of you may know, and some of you may not, that before I became a nutritionist and a functional medicine practitioner specialising in mental health, that I was a typical corporate career girl, a real work hard, play hard kind of a person, always on the go, always stressed, and always honestly anxious, but seemingly full of energy at that time. And I told myself that that was how I thrived, by being wired all the time. And little did I know then that this kind of wired state was actually the first stage of burnout for me. Now, fast forward to my 30s, and I noticed that I couldn't quite sustain that lifestyle in the same way as I had in my 20s. And I started to notice kind of all these little changes in my health. So the anxiety and stress started to feel a little overwhelming. I couldn't fall asleep. And then when I did fall asleep, I really struggled to kind of get up in the mornings. I found it really difficult to concentrate, and my short term memory was shocking. My mood was also all over the place. I was irritable and quite tearful at times. And there were physical changes too. So I put on weight, I was hungry all the time, I was bloated, and I kind of had these what I'd call IBS type symptoms. My periods were all over the place. And honestly, all of this physical stuff was just feeding back into my mood. And the main thing that I felt was like nervous tension. I was wired and tired, or what I would now call stage two of burnout. And if this is sign like you at all, then please reach out and get help. This is the time to kind of recognize it when you need the help. I didn't, unfortunately. I kind of carried on. I had it in my head that asking for help was a sign of weakness or failure. And it was this was what was driving me, this fear of failure and letting other people down instead of prioritizing my own health. And then I was also fearful that my health was going to affect my performance at work, or that it would affect my relationships. But the fear of failure just kind of overrode all of that. I got more tired, I got more emotionally overwhelmed, and honestly just more unable to cope. I disengaged from my family and friends and lost interest in most of the things that I used to like doing, and I just worked. And I can remember the day I broke like the back of my hand. And thankfully for me, I was at home, because I think I was teetering on the edge quite a lot while I was in the workplace, up and down to London all the time. I remember this particular day, I was supposed to be traveling down south for a meeting, and I woke up and just felt totally apathetic. I couldn't get out of bed. Had no motivation. I was exhausted and just felt broken. I knew that something was massively wrong, because I was just not myself at all. I was literally a shadow of my former self. So I went to the doctor in a right state, and I was promptly told, "You're depressed," and immediately prescribed antidepressants. And honestly, I was gutted. How can I be depressed? I'm so happy, I'm so positive, and I'm normally such an energetic person, full of life, or I had been at least. I also had this kind of real aversion to medication, but my sister in law gratefully helped me to reframe my thoughts on this. And she said to me, if you were a diabetic and you needed insulin, you wouldn't hesitate to take that medication. And maybe your brain is just lacking the chemicals it needs to regulate your mood at the moment, and this will help you. So I did take them, and they did help me at that real low point. But did they kind of get to the root cause, and did they fix that? No, I don't think they did. Actually, what I really needed the most was rest. And after I rested, I started to question things a little bit more, as that depression label just didn't quite feel right to me. And this is where my journey into functional medicine began. And the more I learned, the more I realized that my depressed mood was actually a symptom of functional imbalance throughout my body. And it had all been driven by one thing: stress. I was tired and had experienced what I now call stage 3 burnout, total exhaustion. So, who watched the documentary this week with Davina McCall in it? This is a perfect example of how symptoms of fatigue, brain fog, and crippling low mood can actually have a hormonal root cause. And in her example, it was the menopause. Hopefully, if you did catch the documentary, it highlighted to you that our hormones are going to have such a huge influence on how we feel, and not just at that age. So my sex hormones were definitely out of whack and contributing to some of my symptoms. But there was definitely a bigger hormone at play for me: cortisol. Cortisol had been my friend in my 20s, but we fell out big time in my 30s. And honestly, we are still coming to an understanding now because, 15 years of stress doesn't heal itself overnight. But our mental health is not just about whether our hormones are sending the correct signals. It's also about whether our brain cells have enough energy to do their job. Is our nervous system firing correctly? Is our gut letting in the right nutrients and keeping the bad guys out? Is our immune system on point? A disruption in any of these symptoms can have a big influence on your mood and energy levels. And the really good news is that they can all be influenced by diet and lifestyle. So burnout does not have to be your fate. I have learned so much and I wanted to share it with you, which leads me on to my exciting news. So I am writing a book. It's all about how to tackle fatigue and emotional overwhelm naturally. It's going to be an essential guide for tired and wide career women in their 30s and 40s seeking to prevent burnout. And with post-pandemic mental health on the issues on the rise, with women particularly susceptible to burnout, I am really hopeful that this book will offer some timely and actionable advice about how to self-manage symptoms of corporate stress without medication. And if you just can't wait for that book to come out, then I've got even more exciting news. So I am offering free 30-minute lunch and learn webinars between now and the summer. So if you'd like me to come along to your organisation to talk about burnout and share my top tips of how to tackle it, then please pop me a DM message after you finish watching this video and we can get that set up. So that's everything from me today. Look after yourselves. It is Mental Health Awareness Week. If you're feeling tired or emotionally overwhelmed, then definitely reach out for some help and take a step off the gas and just rest and reflect and decide what to do next. Don't let it escalate to the point that it did with me. Burnout, as I said, burnout doesn't have to be your fate. So yeah, take care and I will see you soon.